Everybody please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Dewhurst.
Here.
Commissioner Palmer.
Yep.
Vice Chair Rivera.
Here.
Chair Nicholas.
Yes. Thanks, everybody, for coming to our meeting tonight. First item would be to hear from anybody that isn't here to talk about an item that's on the agenda. I would assume everybody's here for items on the agenda. Do we have any conflicts of interest to report?
No.
All right, let's get started then. First item is a request for sign use permit for a digital highway sign. And if we could have a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you this evening is a request to do a highway sign. It's a special kind of sign out of our ordinance to be located at 710 Chestina Drive. We all know it as Solano's here in Weed. And the sign would be a new type of sign for the city of Weed. It would be essentially, it looks like a large television. It's an LED sign, allows for movable type and movable product. The sign location is shown on the screen here. Be located at the front of the property. It's oriented predominantly for the freeway. In fact, entirely for the freeway. It's not really for local residents. We all kind of know where Solano's is. Can advertise all sorts of things.
Can you speak up, please?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
All right, I'll start again. How's that? Here we go. I'm married with children. I'm supposed to be sitting quietly and shutting up, so this is a joy. Okay, so this is a request for a digital highway sign to be located at 710 Chestina Drive. This is a different kind of sign than we already have in the city. It has movable type. It's backlit. It has a movable type in terms of you can change the copy without having to physically go out to the site. This is a highway sign permit, and our code is silent on these. There's nothing in the code that gives us any parameters whatsoever to work from. So that's one of the things the Planning Commission will need to work through this evening. This will be a two-sided sign in that it will have a sign that can be seen both from northbound and southbound I-5, and it will be high enough to be above the trees, but no higher than 80 feet as proposed. Next slide, please. So as you can see on Chestina Drive, there's already existing signs. You can see both the south and the northbound. Although interestingly enough, the northbound sign isn't really visible from Chestina because the trees have grown up along the road there. You can see it from I-5, but you can't really see it from the road. I have a couple of the pictures in the staff report. Next slide, please. This is the rendering that was provided with the application materials that shows the approximate sign. Don't worry about the copy. It's just an example of what would be there. You can see on the right side of the slide that that it's sort of a V-shaped so that it can be visible from both north and southbound I-5, and you can see the approximate height. Next slide, please. Now, these signs, when they first came out in the late 80s, early 90s, you could see them from Venus. I mean, they were so bright and so obnoxious that a lot of communities outlawed them altogether. Technology and opinion has changed quite a bit. This is a lighting study that's included in the staff report that shows the visibility of the sign will be significantly diminished as you get further from the sign, and there are only certain angles that the sign will be visible from along the freeway. As I mentioned previously, this sign system is designed specifically to attract and to get the attention of people on the freeway. It's not really necessary for people within the city. Next slide, please. So staff had gone through the provisions of the code. As I mentioned, our code is silent on these types of signs. In terms of the other parameters for a sign, There are existing highway signs in the area. This is entirely up to the purview of the Planning Commission. We've provided a recommendation in here if you should be interested in approving the sign. We would recommend that you hear from the public and then hear from the applicant first and then hear from the public and then make a decision on the project. We believe it's exempt from CEQA as an accessory structure. So from an environmental standpoint, we looked at a couple of things. We looked at whether it would obstruct a view of Mount Shasta, which is the predominant view in the area, and the answer is no. It's not going to be in that vicinity. So in terms of other impacts, that's entirely up to what the commission wants to discuss this evening. And the applicant is here, and I believe has a PowerPoint presentation. Is that right, Scott? Oh, okay. Does not have a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm sure he'd be here to answer any questions you might have. I'd recommend you open the public hearing if you're going to hear from the applicant, sir.
Yes, let's go ahead and open the public hearing, and we will hear from the applicant and proponent of the project.
Hi, thank you. My name is Scott Smith, and I'm with Legacy Sign Company. I do have a computer that I could put some visuals up if that's possible. And I have an adapter for that. We've got an adapter for the adapter. Well, while we're working on that, I can kind of summarize a little bit. So again, my name is Scott Smith, and I'm with Legacy Sign Company. The sign will be, like Mark said, Mr. Teague said, it'll be facing the I-5 freeway. It will be displaying local businesses to the local community college, to charity organizations, also a lot of public service announcements, say for city endorsed programs such as if there's a student of the month at the high school, we could give that student recognition on the sign. Fire departments and law enforcement love these types of signs because they can also display, say, Amber Alerts or missing person alerts for law enforcement, or fire evacuation messages for fire departments. I have some visuals if we can get that up there, but if not, we'll just use our imagination, I guess. Oh. Okay. Yep. So it's a little small, but here are some creative examples of advertisements that would be running on the sign. It's funded by commercial advertising. I mean, that's the bottom line. But there's also a lot of community benefits to these types of signs. Part of the plan is to run tourism advertisements to get people off the highway and into the city of Weed. You're very fortunate as a city that you do have a freeway running through your city, And lots of times the challenge is just to get people off the freeway into the cities so that they can support the tourism and the local businesses. These are just examples of what those tourism ads may look like. Here's some examples of what the local high school creatives can look like. Legacy Sign Company will provide all the creative for the city with the city's approval. Like I said, law enforcement and fire departments love these type of signs because when there's an evacuation message that needs to get out, it can go up at the push of a button and immediately notify thousands of people about those evacuations. Same thing with missing person alerts. You know, timing's of the essence. When there's a missing person, getting that message out to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible is critical. The project, I don't know what else I can, is okay for me to discuss regarding the project. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has anything to say.
I do have a question. Is this the only location you've really investigated?
So when we started looking at this project, we looked at about 10 different sites throughout the I-5 primarily. And this was the best site in terms of the Caltrans regulations, the local City of Weed regulations, which limits it to a couple stretches of road, including Shastina Drive. And also as Mr. Teague pointed out, there's already 2 existing signs that would be on either side of this sign. So it seemed like the most appropriate place to place this sign.
And this is a privately owned sign. It's not connected to any business here in Weed.
It would be the property of Legacy Sign Company, but it would be on the Solano's home improvement property. I think that possibly some misconceptions out there is that Solano's is profiting from this. They are not. They would get some ad space on the sign, but when I met with them and explained to them that this would be something that would also be good for the community, local businesses, and as well as the city of Weed in terms of promoting tourism, city announcements, anything like that.
To that point, the content that's put on the sign is created by somebody not of this area or just commercial only. The content that's put on that sign. We have no control here in Weed.
Yeah, so there's pretty strict restrictions on what kind of content would go up on it. For instance, there would be no cannabis advertising. There'd be nothing having to do with any violence, no sexual or adult-related content on the sign. Kind of,
The ordinance,
yeah,
I get you.
common
I know
sense
what you're
type of
going to.
stuff. Yeah, nothing controversial, no political, no religious. It kind of gets sticky when you allow that stuff. And that is more restrictive, much more restrictive than the existing signs that exist in Weed. To my knowledge, there is no restrictions on what kind of creative they can put on those signs, or it's less. And this sign being of digital nature, the advantage of this is that you can change creative at the click of a button. So, like I said, all those PSAs, anti-drunk drivers, law enforcement, fire department, it's something that other signs can't do. So that's what separates this sign from the existing signs out there that are strictly commercial with very likely less restrictions, if any.
Thank you.
Another question after you. So you said, our police department, fire department. So is there 24-hour access to the sign? Meaning, police station's looking for somebody, they can immediately contact your company. Within a minute, you would have it up on the sign.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we would have the template for the creative already made for say fire evacuation. And then when there's an emergency situation, the fire department would contact Legacy Sign Company and say, hey, we need evacuations, notifications going out for the Edgewood community. And it would take about 2 minutes to get that posted. Yeah, so when there is a need for emergency communications, all commercial advertising ceases. And it's nothing except for that law enforcement message, that fire department message, until that emergency is over.
Any further comments?
Not at this point.
Okay,
I'm happy to come back if there's any other questions that come up, though. But
Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
sure. So at this point, we'd like to hear from other interested parties. If you would step up, state your name.
My name is Dennis Smith. I live at 206 Hidden Meadow Drive. It was a good presentation. I guess I have some concerns about, he talked about the various things that wouldn't be allowed on the sign. Well, who's controlling that? There aren't any conditions on the permit right now that speaks to the stuff that's going to be on the sign. If you can answer that.
So that's a good question. It's something that is a very sensitive subject, and I do take that very seriously. So the agreement with Solano's Home Improvement, Solano's was very strict in their restrictions with what they would allow on the sign. I mean, this is above their business, and they want to be careful with what's represented up there. But as this project moves forward, I would be willing to work with the city on any additional concessions. I could provide a list of the existing restricted categories that, such as the cannabis, adult-related topics, violence type of stuff. But this is something that we could do as an open conversation.
If it please the chair, the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America prevents government from abridging free speech. We could control a lot of things about the sign, but the content is not one of them. So this would be controlled by private agreement, and the agreement with Solano's is actually an attachment to the staff report because it was submitted as part of the application material. But the city of Weed has zero control over the content, not only of this sign, and I don't wish to single this one out, but any sign because of the First Amendment.
Okay. And I guess my other concern is going to be just the additional sign in the row of signs there. You've got a residential area right across the freeway from there that they're going to have to look at that day and night. We've already got the equivalent of a 4-story building with the other 2 signs on the storage yard. I'm afraid it's ruining the image of Weed being a small mountain town. It's not Las Vegas West, so we need to consider that. And I'm kind of concerned about, I realize that the sign falls in this, the freeway zone, but there really isn't anything in here that talks about what's allowed in the freeway zone. If you go back to the regular sign requirements, it says you can't have any signage that isn't pertinent to the property it's sitting on. There's a problem there for me. It's not very clear, and I'm hoping that you guys are going to look into that and try to clean that up at some point. Other than that, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, my name is Barbara Higdal, and I live at 318 Hidden Meadow Drive in Weed. I just pulled up the City of Weed website under sign permit, and it says the overall goal of signage is to promote a citywide imagery that encourages a harmony among individual business signage. And I'm here today to tell you that this does not. This is a poor image for Weed. Other cities have things that are notable to them. Dunsmuir is a city of pure water. McLeod is the gateway to the ski park. Mount Shasta is the alpine community. Do you want Weed to be the city of that big ugly sign on the freeway? I'm asking you to really consider what this means for the town. This is not the image that we want for our city.
Thank you. Is there any further comments?
I'm Dean Davis. I live at 401 Meadow Lane. It's almost directly behind from the freeway where this sign would be erected. I got a few questions. I wondered about, one thing's probably not that important, but this is kind of a capital improvement that's going in on top of Solano's. Is this going to affect their taxes or somebody's taxes? How do you deal with these kind of things? I'm curious. Another thing is, I wondered is this sign, is it capable of producing motion? Is the image fixed? Okay, I was addressing him because he's going to answer. Okay, that's fine. I'm wondering if the image would be in motion or changing, or if it's a fixed image that will be changed upon command by someone. Changes every 8 seconds. No motion in the image, okay. Because I was really concerned. I know that I saw your quick assessment on this, that there's no safety concerns about this. And that alone kind of disturbs me, that people are going to be watching for what the change is going to be at the 8 seconds as they're driving along the freeway. And we're looking at a junction here. It's not just anywhere along the freeway, out in Shasta Valley, flat and straight. This is steep slopes for a freeway. People spin out every winter on these slopes. The on-ramps and off-ramps associated with 97 and I-5 are probably, if not the busiest in our county, as recognized by the extra lane coming on there with really slow trucks coming off of 97. It's a hazard. It's inherently a hazardous area. Any distraction, I think, to a driver in that area is probably not a wise move. I think it could be easily avoided by not putting a sign that's going to change its image every 8 seconds. It's also an enormous sign, might be the biggest sign in our county. Not something that, as a Weed resident, I'm going to be proud of. I'm concerned that this year, and I know there's agreements that relate to all this stuff, but a bunch of trees were cut both within the I-5 right-of-way and the Shastina Drive right-of-way. Some were topped, some of them died. I'm sure everybody looks at the hill above Bowles Creek there, and you can see the mortality that's increasing in these lower elevations in our forests. I'm concerned about taking out green trees. They're getting more and more precious.
Thank you. Do you have any further comments? Please step up.
I'll just speak from here. One of my concerns is the sign's gonna be so huge, it's gonna have multiple images of items that are on that sign. And as someone drives down, they're gonna try to fix themselves on, which sign should I fix myself on? Next thing you know, it'll be getting in an accident. Or they're waiting for the sign to change back so they can see what they saw, what they missed. The sign being lit up all that time is gonna be quite annoying for people and our residents. My name is Victor Stupansky. I live at 1214 Hidden Meadow Drive.
Thank you. Is there any further comment? Okay, he's going to have an opportunity to come back up. Would you like to step up for any rebuttal information?
Jeff Lowe, 907 Hidden Meadow. I would like to just confirm who's profiting.
I'm sorry, we cannot capture you. You need to come to the podium, please. Thank you. You'll have to restart.
Jeff Lowe, 907 Hidden Meadow.
Just curious about the payment process, who profits from it, where all that kind of ties in for our community. Thank you.
Question? Go ahead. I think Brian.
How much brighter is this sign gonna be than what Caltrans is putting up with a readout sign?
Caltrans has restrictions on the brightness of the signs. The old signs, as Mr. Teague pointed out, were much brighter than the ones that are now.
That's my point.
Yeah, the ones that are out there now, I mean, the old ones, you could see kind of like a glow coming off the sides.
Sign the same way?
No, it's not. So they dim automatically. They have a photocell dimming capability so that whether it's a sunny day, if it's a cloudy day, or if it's night, they dim down appropriately so the light level never gets to the point where it looks anything, they look just like any other sign.
The question is, Caltrans is putting them up, down the freeway. So they can read out if somebody's missing, still ahead, accident ahead, whatever, big ones right at the top. How much brighter is your sign than theirs?
My guess is that it's less bright. Just because the quality of the signs that I've seen Caltrans using, they're almost like bulbs that you see. And these are LED screens, so each diode dims down depending on how bright it is. The Caltrans signs, I'm pretty certain that they do not dim down. They just have one brightness.
How many local businesses do you have that are gonna be on that, like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, truck stop, whatever, Pyro?
So each side, each face of the sign is a digital screen, and it'll change advertising every 8 seconds. So every 8 seconds, it'll switch to a different advertiser in a 64-second loop. So it can support multiple different businesses or messages within the same loop each day.
Question is, how many do you have, the local ones that are wanting one?
At this point, we have not marketed it out to any businesses. Yeah, but I would be open to providing discounts to local businesses if just to encourage the participation for them to get involved with it. Again, the idea of the sign is to really support local businesses, promote the city, the tourism, and for it to be a positive thing for the community. Somebody had a question about the taxes. That would fall on the sign company, the owner of the sign. The proximity of this sign to other signs, there's really nowhere else in the city that a sign could be placed and fit within all the requirements. So it's just if people are worried about, well, this one's going to go up, then there's going to be 20 more. That's not the case. If you look at the sign code, and I discussed this briefly with Mr. Teague, there really is no other areas where any additional signs would be able to go up.
Can anybody from Hidden Meadows see this sign when it's on?
I'm not familiar with Hidden Meadows, but the intended audience for the sign to be seen is going to be on the freeway.
Nobody behind it's gonna be seeing, you're not gonna be on the other side of Solano's on the mountain looking at your sign.
No, because that would be on the back side of the signs. Yeah, these digital signs have come a long ways in terms of the quality of the screens, how clear they are. You often don't realize that it's a digital sign until it changes creative. The brightness is dimmed down so that there's no excess light. It is only using as much electricity and light as it needs to display the image. It's not spraying light all over the place. This is a image of the light study imagery that was provided, and Caltrans has strict restrictions on how much light these types of signs are able to put out or should not put out. And once you get to say 150 feet or so, the light is almost unnoticeable because there is so little light coming out there. And again, the goal of this sign is for it to look like a non-digital sign. You don't want it looking like a digital sign.
You don't wanna look like Vegas.
No, we don't.
Okay,
And
thank you.
somebody else asked, who profits from this? Legacy Sign Company owns the sign. We sell the advertising on the sign. Solano's, if they want to speak to this, but I do not pay them any rent consideration for this. They will get some advertising on the sign. But it's basically just Legacy Sign Company. And then, like I said, some of the space on the sign I plan to give back to the community to promote tourism and other city endorsed events.
Okay. Anything further? We'll go ahead and close the, well, we'll have a staff response first.
I have one more. My name is Jean, and I am Victor's wife. As I was sitting here, a couple things occurred to me, and I wonder if they could be answered. With LED lighting, that would be electricity, and cords would be needed. Is that correct? And if so, would they be buried, or would they be on the surface? The reason I ask is because we're in such a high fire area. If lightning were to strike, and this would be an electric sign, boom, I would just wonder what kind of an explosion it would create, if it would create an explosion.
Thank you. We'll see if we can answer that. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Victor Stepanski again, and I'm a former employee from Caltrans, and Blackview is correct about the signs.
Brian, go ahead.
About the signs not being bright enough. I stop truckers all the time, and they tell me, I didn't see that sign. Well, it's been displayed, and it's not bright enough. A sign like this would be too bright, and it'll be in between where the signs are, where Caltrans have. And having the sign being changed every second or so, I can't even adjust myself to read something unless it's fixed for 5 or 10 seconds. So that's going to be a hazard, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. One more.
I'm Donna Winger, 1211 Hidden Meadow Drive. I still don't understand who gets to put up the pictures. Are they where you live? Because you're not here. Who decides to put up what pictures?
Who buys the advertising?
It's just advertising.
We'll get that answer shortly. Thank you. Scott, would you like to step up and answer some of those?
I got one comment I want to make.
Last comment, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, I've lived in this area all my life, and everybody that I know that wants to come
For
to
the
this.
record, could you state your full name?
Yeah, it's Joe Ganem. I live out at Lake Shastina. Lived in this area my whole life. I know people come into this area. The appealing part of it is they want to get away from the city. They don't want the lights around them. I think it's going to hurt the city to allow this to come into the town. So I just wanted to make that comment. Yep.
Okay, Scott, could you respond, please?
The advertising content there's, like I said earlier, there's restrictions on what can or cannot be put up to control the appropriateness of that content for the community. It is done all online. There's not somebody that has to physically go out to the site to post the copy. The advertisers that are on it will be, putting their own advertisements up. I would like to run, like I said, some tourism copy. If the school district would like to put anything up, I'd be open to doing that. But it would all be vetted by Legacy Sign Company and the restrictions that are selected up there. As well as Solano's does have some categorical restrictions on what can be posted on there.
Thank you.
Scott, underground power and lightning and explosive stuff like that.
Yeah, the power source would be from the property. It would be connected by PG&E. It's all done to electrical code. There's no new transformers being put in or anything that would cause any type of explosions or anything like that. It would be just like if there was a street light that was installed, similar setup. It doesn't draw a particular like large amount of electricity. It's not like it needs its own transformers or anything like that. So I've never had any problems with there being any fire hazards from the electricity of these.
Thank you. Do we have any staff response?
No, sir, I did want to mention that the Caltrans requirements for placement of a sign of this type along the highway are included in your staff report. And there are limitations on where these can go that are imposed by the state, and there is a separate permit that has to be obtained through that, but the number one thing on the permit is, of course, your consideration and approval before that goes forward. So I just wanted to draw your attention to it since I didn't mention it in my opening remarks.
Thank you. We'll declare this public hearing closed then and request commission discussion. Anybody have any comments?
Rolling Hill's gonna end up with it. The
Well,
local people get it. The
Let
local people
me
get
start with the fact that the city ordinance, as I understand, only allows one sign in that particular Shastina Drive. I think the city was in an error allowing a second sign if there's a second sign there. And so basically, the opportunity for a sign at this particular point is not available by city ordinance. Any other comments?
I agree with that. Would you like to cite the ordinance that we're,
Yes, it's in City Ordinance Section 1824.230 and including additional sections that are there. Basically, what it says is one sign intended to be viewed from the highway motorist it may be permitted on property within the following described highway advertising zone. Item 3 on that is Shastina Drive, the full length of Shastina Drive.
yes. Thank you.
Further comments? Do we have a motion?
I call, question?
Question?
To, we're voting no, or we pull a question? Okay.
Call for the question?
All in favor?
Do we approve?
No for me.
Okay, so the concept here is, do we want the particular sign there in violation of our ordinance? And basically, we need to either decide if we're going to deny this permit opportunity or accept it. I recommend and make a motion to deny it. And you second that?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I got, yeah.
If it please the chair, since this is an interpretation of the code that was previously not understood by staff,
Yes.
I'll put a note in the file, and when we finally get around to modifying this code, we will have to make those provisions so it's clear, because I think it's a little ambiguous the way it's currently drafted, and it's through no fault of anybody's. We have 2 signs out there, so clearly other people thought it was ambiguous as well. So if it please the chair, I'll put that in there and make sure that we all know about it for next time.
Yes, please, thank you. And there is other zones that the sign can go up. in particular, 97 is a zone that allows it, and so is the North and South Weed Boulevard areas. Okay, second item is a conditional use permit for modification extending parking at 132 North Weed Boulevard. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, sir. When I get there, hang on a moment. It's several pages of my staff report later. There we go. Before you this evening is modification of existing conditional use permit that was put in place to allow auto repair at 132 North Weed Boulevard. When the condition of approval was placed on the use permit, there was a provision that limited the amount of, or the time that cars could stay there. As time has gone on, part shortage, all sorts of supply chain issues have led to the problem where cars can't leave the site because they don't have the adequate parts, and it's caused a code enforcement issue and problem for both the owner and for the city. The application before you this evening is to modify the use permit conditions to allow a little lengthier stay for vehicles that are awaiting repair, and make sure that they are screened and sheltered and kept out of the way so that we don't have the code enforcement issues that we've had previously. So just like before, this is a public hearing. People can come in and talk about it, and then the commission needs to decide whether it's okay to modify the use permit. In my world, if it took a commission action to establish the permit, it takes a commission action to modify the permit. So this isn't something staff can do on their own, which is why it's before you this evening.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and let's open the public hearing. And is there a proponent here?
Does not appear to be.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak one way or another on this issue? Ryan?
My name's Ryan Coates. I'm a community service officer with Weed Police Department. We've had 39 incidents created between 2018 to 2024 with issues containing violations of the property's conditional use permit, RV trailer living outside of a RV park, and public nuisance, including the use of a porta potty in an undesignated location. This doesn't include every contact made for follow-up, and this does not include every the multiple theft from vehicle and vandalism to vehicle reports due to an overabundance of broken down vehicles with long-term storage and unsecured area. There have been vehicles stored on the property for years. There's a specific RV that was there from 02/18 of 21 to just the end of this last year. It's in my opinion that to have a time limit wouldn't be a effective use due to the manpower that would be required from Weed Police Department to monitor the activity. The constant supervision would require significant expensive labor hours and could be considered prejudicial against business owners in a location of town historically monitored by space allotment instead of time. Those locations are 60 North Weed Boulevard, 44 South Weed Boulevard, 69 South Weed Boulevard, Woodbine Grass Auto, Quality Auto, etc. Having allotted space allowment would allow for a quick summary account of a property conforming to a conditional use permit where one of multiple businesses can violate it and endanger the rest of the businesses operating under the conditional use permit, since this specific property was originally permitted with just the one business. Now there's three.
And so the three, by ordinance, are allowed to have 10 days for each business, correct?
And we're supposed to be notified if a vehicle is going to go beyond that time frame, and then they get an additional 10 days. And so we're expected to be there every 10 days and see if a vehicle is in violation or not.
Who wants you to be there every 10 days?
In order to be sure that the property is operating to the permit, that's,
What does the property owner, pizza factory, who wants you to be there?
it's in the interest of the city to make sure that there's not a public nuisance with an overabundance of vehicles.
Business before was Mallory Chevrolet, had 172 cars there. They stayed there average of every 6 months to 2 years.
But they changed use.
What?
They changed use,
Oh, I know.
right? And so when they changed use, they have a use permit for the current use versus when it was a Chevy dealership.
I know that, but the point is, what do the cars hurt that are there?
As I said before, with the overabundance of vehicles that are there for an extended period, there have been many reports of vehicle vandalism and theft from vehicles.
There has been everywhere. I mean, they robbed the police car, for God's sake. You sold your tires out of the once. I mean, vandalism, theft's not gonna stop no matter where they park the car. It happens in Weed every day. Or however often it happens. We have a good police force, so it doesn't happen all the time. But the point is, who's complaining about the cars being there?
Probably just the enforcement of your time alone is.
I mean, why?
If it please the chair, maybe I'll let Ryan off the hook here a little bit. The existing use permit has the time limit. We're asking to change that to a physical place. They have to park the cars where they're supposed to be. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He can't cut them any slack because the use permit had specific provisions. We're attempting to modify the use permit to allow it to be more physical and more reasonable for monitoring, as opposed to time-based, it's physical-based.
You know, my question was, is the pizza factory complaining?
That I don't have information on.
I don't know that anybody's complaining. The issue is there is a use permit that says you're to have the vehicles out of there in 10 days. And when they have that use permit, that's basically saying they have 10 days. And if they're staying there for years, they're in violation of their
I
own use
agree with
permit.
the years, don't get me wrong, I do. And I tow them out of there all the time. People leave them. So let's just go with a good point. I'm gonna tow a car in there tomorrow, I'm gonna tow your car in. You're on your way here from LA. You break down, you have me towed into, hopefully not my, anyway, you have me tow it into there. I tow it in, I park the car, they come out and find a blown motor, you're from LA. So now you want the car removed in 10 days. Legally, he cannot. Neither can you. The car was put there by a tow truck to a working shop. The guy has a blown motor, the people who own the car don't have any money. So now you got 3 months to lien sell this car, get the paperwork done, or the city can junk it. City can only junk it if it's valued under $300. So now you're going after a repair guy who the people driving the car had no clue that that thing hanging out of the side of the motor was a rod. And you have him lien selling the car, getting the paperwork in the car, get permission to get rid of the car, and ask him to do it within 10 days. That is ridiculous.
We would agree. That's why we're requesting that you change the use permit.
Point is, why are we even caring? Why are we spending the man hours on a use permit that's how many years old?
It was drafted in 1992.
Okay.
It's old enough to vote, yeah.
I remember when my little buddy had it with the mules. I mean, we used to have 10 or 12 cars out there.
So what staff is recommending, the original application was requesting a modification from a 10-day conditional use permit to a 45-day approval, which would still have a time limit on it and would still require community service and enforcement to go out there and monitor that. What staff is requesting is, instead of a time of days, that you guys approve so many parking spaces per licensed business.
But my point is, why don't we leave it, why don't we just have no on it until one of the pizza factory, Napa, whoever's in the area wants the vehicles gone. The RVs, you're right's a problem. People park them there, they'll leave them, they're abandoned, the city can't get rid of them.
The code reads that those type of businesses are required to have a conditional use permit. So in 1992, the one business that was there was permitted to have a 10-day maximum parking. So right now, code enforcement is forced to enforce that.
No, I agree with what you
Yes.
said. Give them
So-
more time, it'd be fine. It's too many man hours.
Yeah, so what we're asking for is you guys modify the conditional use permit to be 10 parking spaces per licensed business, because now that there's 3, that's 30 parking places instead of a time.
So the 45 days, so it wouldn't be 45 days, it'd just be the 10 spaces
Yeah,
per
or
business.
however many you guys feel are.
Weed Police Department's recommendation is 10 spaces for each licensed business.
I missed that. Yours what?
Say that again?
I didn't hear you.
I said Weed Police Department's recommendation is 10 spaces per licensed business.
For how long?
Indefinite. It's however fast they can do the repair and get the car out.
I like it.
That's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
And just to clarify, the reason this all started is a public nuisance was started in 2018, and we had a 3-layer stack of vehicles beyond the cement wall, which is a violation of our
I
vehicle
got the
public
RV.
nuisance. Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Let's go ahead and close this public hearing and open it up for commission discussion.
Prove it. Let them have it.
I agree with the,
Let the police
the
department have
Weed
it.
Police Department's,
Do we have a motion?
yeah, I'll make a motion to approve with Weed Police Department's,
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, let's move on to approval of the May 15th, 2024 minutes. Is there any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And commissioners' reports. Anybody have anything?
No report.
Staff report?
Are we missing something?
Nope, we're still looking for commissioner number 5. So if
Yes.
anyone within the city, or he's a staff member, he can't, or anyone within the sphere of influence, which does include the Hidden Meadows area, is interested in serving on the commission, please come see
We
me.
probably should have asked that while some of those people were here.
Should
huh?
have had my report first, yeah.
I work for
Okay.
CAL FIRE, so I can't do that.
We only meet once a month, probably 3 times a year. Okay, no further comments? We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The only problem with it is Mike.